I defended Israel for 2 years, and I was wrong. That was a big mistake. I talked about history, facts, and values. I explained Israel's position rationally. But I was wrong. This isn't about Israel, and it is not even about the Palestinians. I will give some good examples in a moment. But first, let me say what this is really about. It's about the protesters themselves. They don't want to understand the conflict. They want to feel good about themselves. It's about guilt, about how they want to be seen, about their desire to belong to something. And that's where the focus should be. The Hague movement, the anti-Zionist movement they are part of. When I defended Israel, I placed myself exactly where they want me. They spread a libel, and I responded by explaining, defending, justifying. But they are not here to discuss facts or history. It's all about them. They believe they are part of a liberation movement, a new justice movement, that they are heroes. We need to expose them. Expose that they are, in fact, part of a century old movement of hatred that has always used libels to demonize Jews. You can see the hatred in every move they make. Even now, they called for a ceasefire. And when there is a ceasefire, the violent demonstrations continue, and Jews are attacked and murdered around the world. Let's expose them. You can view their worldview as a triangle: the oppressor, Israel, the oppressed, the Palestinians, and the savior, themselves. Sounds simplistic and narcissistic? You're right. Take Greta, for example. She is a climate activist. What does she have to do with this conflict? It's her desire to appear as a hero, a savior, to stay in the spotlight. Notice that no one in the media asked her about that. No one questioned her motives. That's her role, to be a hero. When the topic is climate, she's a climate hero. When it is Gaza, she's a Gaza hero. Notice how naturally the media accepts that. Another example is actress Hannah Einbinder, who goes on stage and shouts, "Free Palestine." What is she really saying? Look at me, see me, look at me. I'm a hero. Pure virtue signaling. And what makes her a hero in her own eyes and the eyes of her followers? It is not her deeds, but the scale of the crimes that she accused Israel of. She's not donating money or volunteering with children with cancer in her neighborhood. No, she's against genocide. She's against ethnic cleansing. She's against apartheid. She's a hero, a savior. But by accusing Israel of the gravest imaginable crimes, genocide, apartheid, and ethnic cleansing, they make it easier to ignore the real crimes of the Palestinians: the absence of democracy, freedom of speech, and freedom of religion. Hamas issued a law stating that unmarried women can't leave their homes without a male guardian's permission. Hamas executed hundreds of Gazans in the last few weeks and routinely kills gay people. But that's small change compared to the genocide libel. And here is a mistake I made many times myself. I used to say that it is absurd that gay men and lesbian and queer people like Hannah Einbinder support the Palestinians because Palestinians would kill them. By my logic, reasonable people wouldn't support those who would murder them. And it says something really bad about societies that imprison or kill people for their sexual orientation. But according to their logic, the very fact that they support people who would kill them makes them feel even better about themselves. Look, I'm not selfish. I stand with people who would kill me. I'm the hero willing to sacrifice myself for the cause. A martyr. Of course, if they spend 2 days in Gaza, they would change their minds. But we're not talking about facts, Israel or Muslim societies here. We're talking about their emotional world. That's what matters, how they feel about themselves. Here we reach a critical point. In earlier videos, I use the example that Jews are the canary in the coal mine. The Jews are a non-violent minority that succeeds and is very sensitive to social change. When things are good for Jews, society flourishes. When things are bad for Jews and Jews leave, that says something bad about that society. I didn't invent that image, but I have another image I did invent. Jews are like a laundry basket for dirty laundry. You take your stinking underwear, and before you jump into the shower to clean yourself, you throw it in the Jewish basket. And that basket is big enough for all your dirtiest, smelliest laundry: socks, underwear, undershirts, sheets, and it doesn't matter what the stain is: sweat, blood, guilt, shame, anger, fear. Just throw it in the Jewish basket. Let's anchor this in reality. In the last 2 years, during the war in Gaza, terrible things have happened around the world. In Syria and Yemen, children are literally dying of hunger. Jihadist militants in Africa are slaughtering tens of thousands of Christians. There is mass killing in Sudan. Every example I've given is many times larger than what happens in Gaza, but nobody cares. One conflict, however, drew endless headlines: the war between Russia and Ukraine. There were protests, too, but they were calm. I never heard of American students supporting Ukraine attacking a Russian Orthodox church, or pro-Russian supporters in Canada preventing Ukrainian students from entering campuses. You don't see that rage we see in protests against Israel. No one calling to abolish the Russian or Ukrainian state. Because again, in the case of Israel, it's not about Israel and it is not about the Palestinians. It's about the protests' emotions, their anger, their guilt, their inner conflicts. If a young American feels guilty for being white and privileged, believing he lives on a stolen native land, fine. If he truly believes that, he can give back his parents' house to the indigenous people and return to the country his ancestors came from. As a Jew, as an Israeli, I have no problem with that. The same goes for angry young Australians. If he has a problem with his country's history, he's welcome to return the land to the Aboriginal people and go back to where his ancestors came from, probably prison in London. Great, but don't throw your problems, your guilt, and your filthy laundry onto us Jews. When you do that, you only expose your own problems and show that you are part of a movement of hate. Anti-Zionism is a hate movement. Anti-Zionism is racism. Defending Israel was a mistake. Precisely the same way that if someone accuses a Jew of drinking baby's blood on Passover, you won't start explaining that drinking blood is forbidden and that the wine is made from fermented grapes. You would call him out as an anti-Semite. We need to constantly bring the conversation back to the attacker's emotional world and to the blood libels they throw at us. We must expose anti-Zionism for what it truly is: an anti-Jewish hate movement. I will also make a video about the history of the anti-Zionist movement. The interesting part is that it was invented in the Soviet Union, and you can trace its connection to Western academia and the Muslim Brotherhood. There is a good reason Qatar pours $5 billion into American universities. And unlike the other side that only wants to feel good about themselves, our side wants to do good for others. So if you want to help, you can donate to IDF soldiers and the families of reservists. The donations are tax deductible, so if you are from the US, you can do good and pay less taxes. Subscribe to the channel and share this video. We have a war to win. See you in the next video. Yalla bye.